Hello, and welcome to another week of Behind the Curtain with Majestic Theater. I'm Carly, and I'm going to be the moderator for today. I'm going to be including any of your questions and comments that you can put in our chat down below. But if you're watching after hours, we would still love to hear some feedback. You can comment on our YouTube channel, or you can also email us at info@majestictheater.com. If you head over to our website, you can look at all of our other archive Behind the Curtain recordings, or you can also check out the latest recording of Danny's play, The Lady Slipper, and maybe give us some feedback on that. But tonight we have Danny, of course, and Jeannine with us. Hey, guys.
Hey, Carly. Thank you. Hi, Jeannine.
Hi. So good to be here.
Thank
you so much for inviting me. It's great. Quite an honor.
How's the weather up there in the North Country? It's a little chilly today.
Well, funny you should mention it. We had our electricity was down last night, and our Wi-Fi up until late this afternoon. So I was getting a little nervous. I'd have to be in the parking lot over by the library.
Right.
That would be
for folks who are tuning in. As Carly said, if you don't catch the show tonight, you can always go to our website or our YouTube channel, and all of our episodes of Behind the Curtain at the Majestic are archived there. Next week, my guest is Doug Major. He'll be joining us from New York, from his place in the city. You folks will remember Doug from A Few Good Men. He had the Tom Cruise role, and Blood Brothers, both our original production of Blood Brothers and when we revived it and brought it back. So Doug Major next week. So here we go. Jeannine, what the heck have you been up to? And how are you staying creative during these COVID days?
Oh, boy.
It's tough.
What a time. What a time, man. Well, I've been watching too much TV for sure, because I got to keep up. If you close your eyes, you miss something important every day.
Sure.
So I've been doing that. And I've also been, we live in a kind of a fixer-upper out here in Goshen, a little house, little cottage with a barn. So I've been, fixing the needed repairs. It's like having a boat, an old boat. It's like I have to do more siding every year and painting and moving things around the barn. And, but it's interesting because I think during this time I've been walking a lot in the woods. We're in a wooded area, and it's amazing just what I'm starting to feel for the land and see in all of the trees. I just feel like I'm not out there alone. And it's just such a great source of inspiration and comfort. Been doing that. And I've been driving a little FRTA bus. That's a little Franklin Regional Transit Authority. It's not so little bus. It's got a lift on it. It's the senior bus for the Hill CDC. And that's really kind of saved me because I get to do my extrovert thing a little bit. So I've been doing that and being on the phone constantly with unemployment. And so that's about it. Done some Zoom shows. Not a big fan. None of us are.
No, I'm not either. What we're doing tonight, you and I, this is fine. And I think, this sort of thing makes sense, but to try and do a play or a concert without a real audience, just to my way of thinking, makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I call it faux theater,
Yeah.
So, and then of course people have approached me, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? And I said, forget it. When I don't know when it's going to happen, but when we can have a real audience, we'll be back in business. So,
yeah.
I
thought about it then. Yeah, I agree. It's just not theater it's not really fun for the actors or rewarding. And I think the audiences are polite, but it's got to be
I
not.
know. We
Yeah.
Todd and I actually yesterday had a meeting with the health inspector in West Springfield, and of course we're in what phase three, stage two, I think it's, or stage three, phase two, whatever, however that works, which technically means that we could reopen the Majestic under certain guidelines. But here are the guidelines. You know, we still have to do social distancing. So we have a plan, a seating plan, a social distance seating plan. And, you know, we would go from 230 seats to 47 seats, I think, you know, max. So that's just, you know, it's not even affordable to produce anything at that.
No.
But then, you know, other restrictions, you can't sing. Well, if you have a singer, they have to be 25 feet away from the first audience member. So 25 feet away from the first row, you know. And if you can't have musicians, you can't have like a clarinetist or a saxophone player or, you know, any brass instruments. You could have a piano, you could have a guitar, but it just you know, it just makes no sense whatsoever. But
yeah, and it's such a waiting game. I finally just resigned myself to, you know, I gotta. It's not going to happen soon. I'm thinking, I don't know, but it's hard, and all the changes too happening in the business, you know, like on the equity end, it's just making it quite a time. So hopefully on the other side of it, we'll have some new outlooks and some new challenges to, in good ways, to be more inclusive and all of that.
Yeah, one of these days, for sure. I think I know the answer to this question because we've talked about it, but you know, folks who are tuning in probably don't, or they may not anyway. Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I know Micah Plunkett grew up there too.
She's an Okie, yeah, all right.
Yeah. So, I grew up in Tulsa, and I had many sisters. I have four sisters, one brother. And the brother's the oldest, and I'm the youngest. And there's 21 years in between.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's really where I happened upon, you know, theater.
There in Oklahoma?
Yeah. I was in, I think I was in 7th grade, and I went to see a friend in a play. Stephen Gomez was in a play in the basement at the library in the theater, the auditorium. And I went in, and I think it's really, I mean, I forgot about this. I had been in a play in 2nd grade. We had a nun. I went to Catholic schools. We had a nun who was really into theater, and we did the Scottish play, which I can say because I'm at home now. We did Macbeth, and I played Lady Macbeth. It was a kid's version, but it said "out, damn spot" in the script.
Oh, really?
And so during rehearsal, I said "out, darn spot."
Out, darn spot.
Yeah. And then I used the same costume to be the wicked stepmother in Which fairy tale has the wicked stepmother? I don't know, whichever one it was.
One of
But
those, right?
meanwhile, back at going to see Stephen Gomez at a real theater or auditorium, I was enchanted. And so I auditioned for the Prime of Miss Jean Brodie at the Tulsa Little Theater. And I got the part. Well, I didn't get the part. I got the part of one of the Brodie girls because I was a little too young to play one of the leads. And I got the part because all the other girls in front of me didn't know what the stage direction meant about making out that, she does this thing where she's imitating Miss Jean Brodie, who's like necking.
Yeah,
she does. And so I did it, and they started laughing in the audience, and I went on with it, and they're like, "Oh, okay." And I got the part. So that was great. And the other thing was that little theater was a wonderful theater. There was it was kind of like the Majestic in that, there were professional, like really good people who came in and worked, and then, young people too. And I was one of the young people. And it was so inclusive. I remember going to be fitted, and the costume person she had some disability, and nobody, nobody said anything, and there were gay people. It's just like everyone was accepted, and it was great. It got me out of the house, got away from my family. What is the problem? My dog wants to know why I'm talking to a computer.
Yeah, right.
I'm not talking to you. Anyway, maybe she'll settle down. Okay. Have to be less animated.
So did you, how long did you stay in Oklahoma? Did you go to college there and so on? And
no, I went away to Texas. When I first got out of high school, I went to Trinity University in San Antonio because Paul Baker was there. And I really knew that I wanted to be in theater. I remember when I was in the Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, I remember sitting on the steps of it was backstage, but from the dressing room down, you had to go through the shop. So I used to sit on the steps. And I remember one time I was smelling the paint from the shop, and I was hearing the play going on, and I was sort of going over my lines. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. I just know it.
yeah.
And so I went away to college. Paul Baker was the head of the theater department, and it was associated with the Alley Theater.
Dallas Theater Center, wasn't it?
Oh, that's it. Yeah. Dallas Theater Center. And he was kind of a big deal back then. So it was a very interesting training that I started out in. Very physical, very sort of external, like you had to do rhythm studies of your character and line drawings and sculptures of some aspect of the character, and then you would do the scene. So it was really interesting. And then I stopped out of school after a year and a half. I went to Europe to backpack, which everybody did back then. Did you ever do that, Danny?
Yeah, I did after college. I went to Europe. I had a fellowship, so had some money, but which was good. So yeah, went to Europe,
wow.
Sweden, and then down to Spain.
Oh yeah, the bullfighting.
Yeah.
So I went backpacking, and I was going to be there for 2 months. So I stopped out after it was a half year, and I stayed 7. I had such a good time. I just stayed 7. And so I lost my scholarship, and So I came back and I went to Tulsa University for a year and did theater there. And then I got scouted by a dinner theater. They came to see a show that I was in, and they asked me if I wanted to go on tour with this dinner theater. And I was like, yeah, why pay to learn theater when you can get paid to do it? So I went, there was a circuit, and there was Memphis and Oklahoma City and Tulsa. And I think I did, I mean, it was long. I don't remember how many weeks. It was 20 weeks. It was 20 weeks per tour. And, you know, you live.
What was the show? Do you remember?
Well, I don't remember the first one, but I remember the last one that I did, which is the second one. It was Hey Naked Lady. And I was, you know, you never saw me naked, but there were coconuts involved. I remember that. I mean, it was really bad. But, you know, I was having a good time. But one of my professors from that first college was in Memphis for some function. And she came and saw it because she saw me she saw the picture in the newspaper, and she took me out for a drink afterwards. And she said, Jeannine, do not pass go. You got to get out of here. You're too good for this.
Yeah.
And I'll get you your scholarship back or go to New York City, but don't pass go. You got to leave. So I left and I went to New York City. So then I was in New York, and that was really quite wonderful. I hated it at first. It's like I died and gone to hell because I thought I was very metropolitan because I'd been to Europe, but New York that was in 79. It was in 79 into 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 5. So it was a hard time for the city. That was one of their really bad periods, but it was intense. So I came back to Tulsa. I left there after a year, came back, did radio in Tulsa, professional radio. And then I got a call from one of the theater people that I had worked with the first year. And she said, come back. We're going to the Festival d'Automne in France, and I'll hire you full-time as an actor, like $150 a week or something. I was like, whoa. So I went back, and then I had quite a good time. We didn't go to the Festival d'Automne, but instead we became the resident company at La Mama. And I got to work with some people that I had just read about, and it was wonderful. Good 2 years there doing that. And then I ended up here because after being in New York, I had some, I had a steady gig for a couple of years, and then I just was auditioning and jobbering in, and I was equity at that point. We did a lot of experimental theater at La Mama.
Yeah, La Mama, sure.
Yeah, and I would, I'd go to auditions, and I didn't know what I was like. I just felt like an alien, There were like all these women dressed up in heels, and so anyway, I ended up starting to waitress, and I was doing that more than I was acting. And I applied to school. I heard about the program at Smith, the AIDA Comstock program.
Sure.
That your sister, I was there at the same time as your sister.
Yeah, my sister Corky. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I ended up moving up here to do that.
And so that's what got you here to the Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sort of my story got me up here at age 28.
And then what did you do in that program, in the AIDA program?
Well, I majored in theater, but I had taken, between those two schools and my experience in New York, I really didn't have any requirements left
Yeah.
for theater. So I took a few theater classes, but mostly I just got the best kind of liberal arts education. I just took everything that looked interesting and sounded interesting. And then after I finished there, I went to graduate school at UMass and got my doctorate.
At UMass.
Theater.
And your doctorate is in what?
It's in creativity in human development, which was sort of like, it's a very generalist program. It was like the Hampshire College of doctoral programs. You really got to put together your own program. It's what I did. And I really focused on healing and what makes healing happen.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really wonderful experience in New York City. I was doing a show at La Mama. It was a Ping Chong show, and Meredith Monk was doing the music, which was wonderful. I got to meet her and work with her. And I ended up actually going to her partner for physical movement therapy because I had really bad TMJ, temporomandibular joint dysfunction.
Yeah.
My mouth would get stuck open. It's about tension, basically, and but it was new, and a lot of people were plagued by it, and they finally named it. And I went to specialists, and they wanted to take my teeth out, and they wanted to put me in. Oh my God! I went to the guy who wrote the book on it, and thank God I had enough sense to just leave. And I was in that show at the time, the Ping Chong show, and somebody said, "Oh, well, you should go to Mika. That's Meredith's partner. She's amazing. She does movement therapy," and which I'd never heard of, and still most people are like, "What? What's that?" So I went to her, and it was funny because their studio was on the 5th floor of a walk-up. Buzzer wasn't working, and it was kind of near Chinatown. And I have so much hope because I'm in so much pain and discomfort.
Yeah.
And for an actor not to be able to
really, I'm kind of aching just hearing you talk about it a little bit.
So I get there and I've got all these great hopes. And this woman, she's Dutch, and she sticks her head out the window and says, "I'm going to throw you down the key. The buzzer's broken." So she throws down a sock that's got the key in it. I'm like, oh God, this is not going to help me. So I get up there, and it was the most extraordinary experience. She actually had me do a number of things, but one of the exercises I remember is to, sit in front of a mirror and cover one side of my face. And she said, "All right, come up with a character for that side of your face." And, they were in this big loft. So I what became this character, and then do the other side, which was this old lady who was the one side was this very joyous young, kid.
Yeah.
Who was cute. And then the other side,
a mask technique, sort of, in a way.
And the other side was this, this old hag woman who was like, "It'll never work." And we just did these really, it wasn't like she was manipulating my jaw, but we would do breathing exercises where you'd breathe up, imagining breathing in one side of your face and then into the other. And I don't know, after about a month, I was fine. And I thought, that is what I want to be. I want to be that. I saw how hard it was to make a living doing theater, and I was like, I want to be that. So that's kind of what I put together. I tried to find a training that would allow me to have those skills. And I had some very interesting training, and I worked as a massage therapist for a while. And but I really kind of came back to healing, that my theater work is really my healing work. It's like, that's where my passion is. That's where my calling is. And I think that the theater really does heal.
Sure.
It really is that function.
Yeah. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. When and how did your relationship begin with the Majestic?
Well, you really have to talk to Danny Eaton about that.
That guy. You have to talk to that guy.
That guy? Oh my God, he's a character.
I do remember that you were our very first equity hire, and it was Pauline in A Winter's Tale, right?
Yeah.
Was it Pauline, right?
Pauline.
Yeah. And speaking of, there's a little message from Doug Major. It says, Jeannine, your king from The Winter's Tale says hello.
Hi, Doug.
But how, how did that come to be? How did you find out about us? And
well, I had just graduated. I think I had just graduated from my doctoral program, and I read in the newspaper. I saw an ad. You put out an ad. So I called up and I asked if you auditioned equity people. And they said, well, let me check. We'll call you back. And they called back and said, yeah, sure. Come on down. We'll see. So I came. I remember what shirt I wore. Took great care in selecting my paisley short-sleeved shirt. And I did the ring monologue from 12th Night. And Liz Zeminski directed it.
Yeah.
And anyway, you gave me the part.
Yeah.
And that was fun because costume was like a costume thing. I remember your set too for that.
Yeah.
I think you designed the set for that. That was before, it might have been before, who's that great designer there?
Greg.
Greg.
Yeah, Greg Trokel. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, well, go ahead.
Yeah, no. All right. So then.
Yeah. So then the next thing I did was Wit.
Wit. Yeah.
And Danny, I don't remember. It's funny. I hadn't seen it, but it was kind of a new script. It had been done somewhere because that's how it'd been done in New York somewhere, because that's where I saw the ad for it. And I looked it up and I got hold of the script, and because Shakespeare and Company had workshopped it with the playwright, who was Margaret Edson, who was a Smithy. And I had tried to get another producer in the area to do it. I talked to him about it, talked to Sam Rush about it, because I had been working at New Century. And he didn't jump on it right away. And then you and I talked, and you had been, oh, look, there I am. You had been thinking about it.
Yeah.
Or you had been thinking about it and asked me about it. I don't remember how it happened, but we were like, you're kidding. I was thinking of it too. Let's do it. And so we did it. And that's still kind of a high point for me. That was a wonderful experience for many, many reasons.
Is there a friend
Van Ferrier? That's the first, actually, I knew Van before this, but it's the only time I was ever on stage with him, I think. And he was very naughty in the scene about the rounds. You know, once we'd been running for a while, he was writing notes to the other actors and they'd pass them around during that while I'm in the hospital bed, you know, looking sick, and I could see them laughing. But he was I have such a great story about Whit and Van.
Sure.
We used to ride down together because we both lived in Northampton. And we came, one time we were walking in and he goes, Jeannine, wait. And I'm like, what? And he goes, we were in front of the stage door, and he goes, that's the stage door. And I said, yeah. And he goes, we're working actors. That was great because we were working actors. And
yeah.
And now I always say that to my cast. If I remember, I'm like, you know, you're working actors. Go out there and get them. You're working actors. So,
that's great.
No small feat.
Yeah. So Whit was a great, really wonderful play. Very, very moving play. Really, really human play, and I think it was very well received. Then what was next?
Well, let me tell you one other little thing about Whit.
Yeah.
Martin Shell directed that.
Yeah.
I remember that. And I had gotten cast, and there was some, you know, you cast early, so there was some time. And I was visiting a friend in St. Louis, and I ended up going to the emergency room. And they did a bunch of tests, and they let me out, but they said, we're only letting you out because you don't live here. You need to go straight back to wherever you came from and go right to an oncologist. Actually, they said, go to a big city to an oncologist. And we think you have ovarian cancer.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah. Which is what that character has in the play that I was already cast in.
Right.
Yeah, started rehearsing. But so I did. I went to Tulsa and I had a complete hysterectomy. And I have the scar, and they did the incision like this because they wanted to be able to do exploratory surgery all the way up your body if they found any indication that they needed to know if it had spread.
It was spread, yeah.
So when I was rehearsing that play, and as it turns out, I didn't have ovarian cancer, thank God. But the oncologist really thought I needed to have the hysterectomy. But so I had a real scar when we were, you know, the final scene. We had me exit upstage when she dies.
Yep, right.
When she dies, spoiler alert, she dies at the end. It says in the stage direction that she gets out of the bed, her robe drops, and she walks down stage. And of which you would have seen the scar then, but you, because of the rules in theater and Springfield and whatnot, I exited it upstage. But that was so interesting because it was that I was dying. I had absolutely no inhibition about doing that scene because it was wasn't about sex or, it was
Sure. Yeah.
vulnerability. And so that was interesting. It was great.
I know as part of our part of this, the turn up stage as opposed to coming down stage, had to do with our whatever license
Right.
we have, to perform. I forget what it's called, entertainment license or whatever. But there's specific restrictions in that
Right.
license, and so you can't. We couldn't show a woman's well, we couldn't show the areola, the nipple. So, I mean, we could have somebody with a low cut dress and a lot of cleavage,
Right.
no big deal, but we couldn't show a nipple, so some of those crazy regulations that we were nervous, we were a little nervous about. And so, that ended up turning it upstage, but then it kind of made more sense, I think, to me, because I remember the little Johnny coming off and you're turned up stage and then there was a lighting effect, and it was pretty pretty moving.
Right.
Pretty moving final kind of image,
Yes. And the woman who played my McEwen,
Barb
McEwen played my mentor in the scene in the bed where she holds me and tells me the story about the rabbit.
Yeah.
She did so beautifully. I was always when my theater company brought that to your theater company, to the Majestic.
Last summer, yeah.
Yeah, that was similar. There was a lot of people who were very affected by that kind of theater piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And so, moving on from Wit, what was your next show? Was it Over the Tavern?
Oh, yeah, it was. Being very theatrical, aren't I? But that was great, too. That's when I met Robbie and Dan Robert.
Dan Robert, yeah.
Is it Robbie Simpson?
Robbie Simpson, yeah.
Yeah. And I saw him. I watched the interview that you did with Robbie, and I saw him in the show that he did when he was down here a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? But anyway, that's where I met they were my two sons in the show.
Yeah.
And Christine, your then sister-in-law.
Yeah.
Was she
the nun?
And came off one night.
What's that?
And we all lost it. Her wimple came off.
Oh, no kidding.
Her hair all pinned together. We had some circle. Van Ferrier directed that. There was something we were doing to her. I don't know, laying on a hand. I don't remember why we were all around her, but somebody got tangled up in her nun thing. She played the nun, and her wimple came off the headpiece, and everybody lost it. The audience just went bananas, and we couldn't contain it. We tried, but we really did. Over that show, you just had total breakup. That was funny. And Dan Robert, we've stayed in touch all these years. He's doing very well. He and his writing partner, Alicia Brooks, who were students of mine at the Pioneer Valley Performing Arts High School, they're still a writing team, and they're staff writers on a show that's on Netflix. It's for teens. I forget what it's called, but they wrote one of the whole episode for one of them that I watched, and they've had some real nibbles that with other things, and they've So they're out in LA,
Yeah.
and they have a podcast. Not a podcast, a web series that I've been in a couple of those.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
I was in a film that they wrote, and then one of their web things. So we've stayed in touch. They're all grown up now, Danny.
Yes, they are. It happens, doesn't it? Seemingly before we know it.
Yeah. And he was like this little, he was tiny. He looked younger than he was, but he was pretty darn young. I think he was 10. And he was like this vaudeville soul. It was like he'd been in showbiz forever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, he was funny.
That was a great show. And then we did the few years later, we did King of the Moon.
Yeah. The sequel.
Which is kind of a sequel. Yeah. Yeah. There's sort of a trilogy with that family, I think, that Tom Dudzik had written. And so we did that.
Yeah. So the kids were older in that one. Oh.
Yeah.
Look how young he was.
I'm not even sure what that is.
I don't know. Who is that? Well,
I think it's Sue DeJura.
It is Sue. Oh, she looks so different now. Yeah, that is her. I don't remember her being in that, but I guess she was. Yeah.
I'm going to have to ask her.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Pauline Productions.
Yeah, well, I did a lot more of those. I did, just to get them all in. We did Judgment at Nuremberg, which you directed.
Oh, sure. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, let me see. I got my resume here. And we did Cabbage Patch. Oh, and then we did the one with Brenny Rabine.
Oh, yeah. That was
right.
That was a funny play.
That was a fun play.
A funny play. What the heck was can't think of the name.
I think I got it on here. Wait. Yeah, that was funny because she was like somebody who knocks on the door.
Like
a Jehovah's Witness or some evangelical, yeah.
And we were a couple of old ladies. It was McEwen again, and we were Catholics. And that's so funny because I learned things about Catholicism that I never understood up to that point. Like, I guess.
Even though you grew up Catholic and went to Catholic schools.
12 years Catholic school. I never knew that Catholics supposedly believed that our bodies came out of the grave when the end days. So we were like horrified. It was so funny. That was a really funny play. And who directed that?
Might have been. Did I do that one? Might have been me. I forget.
It had Southern Disputation or something. Southern.
The Savannah Disputation.
That's it. That's
right?
It.
Yeah.
That was fun. That was a fun one. Yeah, that was a fun one. I had a picture of that, but I guess I didn't send it in.
No, there it is.
Yes, Brenny. She was the one who came to the door. God, that was funny. And Barb was very funny in that. Very cranky old lady. That was the nice one.
Yeah.
Great set. And then I directed there too, Proposals.
Oh, did you direct Proposals?
Yeah.
That was I loved that play. I really liked that production a lot.
Yeah.
You know, this is one of the lesser known Neil Simon
Yes.
plays, but it's like, it's not a joke play, but there's some really, really funny stuff in it. I remember Johnny Hart was a riot. His character, I forget what he was, kind of an Italian, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in a group now. This is another thing that I've been doing during COVID, and we're using the book Me and White Supremacy in that as a kind of to discover your unconscious, for white people to kind of look at
Unconscious
their
bias.
unconsciousm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought about that show a lot because that show was the heart of that show was an African American woman who worked for that family,
Right.
where all those different couples kind of came together. And the woman who played the role, and I can't remember her name, I think she was really, I didn't understand, but I think she was really working against stereotypes. And I was, as a director, I really wanted that woman, the character, to be kind of a stereotype. I wanted that's how it was kind of written, like she was the warm heart of the play. And I've been thinking back on that and just, kind of thinking about what it's like to be the only person of color in a cast.
Sure.
And so it was very interesting for me, and interesting for me now to think about. So that's all.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember her name as well, but I agree with you. I mean, I think she was
British.
She's trying to work against
Yeah.
the obvious. I think
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I gave her a hard time because I just couldn't get the pieces. It was hard to get the pieces to work, to all of it to come together. I think she did great, and we did great. I think it was a good show. We got some commendation by some publication saying they thought it was the best show they'd seen of the year or something. But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Proposals. That was it was one of my favorites for sure. I try and think back through the years, and there's like, I don't know how many there are now. I have to go in the cafe and look up on the wall and look at all the playbills that are up there, and I've got, I think, 2 or 3 years worth of playbills that I don't have on the wall yet because I got no place to put them. I got to figure out some place to put them. But
I know. I love that you do that. I have Pauline Productions, and we do that. I started that in 2006, which is my own theater company. That I'm like you, Danny, in that one, except I pick plays that I can either be in or direct as well as produce them. And we don't have a dedicated, like I can't do a lobby like that. I love your lobby, and I love that you have that cafe, and you've really created a whole experience there. But I guess I would like to talk a little bit about Pauline Productions.
Yeah, absolutely.
We started out, our mission is strong roles for women on stage and behind the scenes. And we started in 2006 with, we did Boston Marriage, and Barb McEwen was in that, and Kelsey, and that was by David Mamet. And it's a funny play. Oh my God. He wrote it for his wife and her friend. It's just the two of them and the maid, which Margaret Streeter played. And I have pictures, but I don't have them. I couldn't send them. I just have the hard pictures. But that was our first show. And we've done about 2 a year since then. And we're on our 14th year. And we originate the shows at First Congregational Church in Asheville, which I think you've come out to.
Yes.
Yeah. So we've done, I started to make a list. We did a reading of Stuff Happens, and that had like 20 actors in it. That was David Hare. Then we did a play by Dan Robert and Leisha Brooks when they were they were graduating high school. We did a play that they wrote called Mayflower Plantation. And it was about those reenactment places.
Sure.
The one that's on the Cape. Can't think of it. Very funny.
Like Plymouth Plantation.
Yes. And we did it at the historic Northampton on the grounds outside. Really, really funny. Oh my God, I wish I had pictures from that. Then we did Doubt by John, can't think of his name either, but that's pretty well known. Doubt.
Yeah.
It's about the nun, and we do have pictures of that. And Margaret Streeter was in that too. She played the younger nun. And
was that at Williston?
Yes,
Doubt?
we did.
Yeah.
We did it at Williston. We did it first at the church. That's actually the first one we did in the sanctuary at the church. So there's Margaret. That was the tea scene where the Sister Aloysius, I'm the big wig nun, and this is the priest that I suspect is messing with the altar boys. I just knew he was. And he takes 2 sugars, and I thought that was a sign. I'm giving his sugar in his tea there. And then we also did at the church, we did the Mystery of Irma Vep. And I think we have some pictures of that. That was with Kelsey Flynn and I. We played the 2. It's usually done by 2 men. And we did it with 2 women.
Yep.
And that was one of the most fun plays I've ever done. That's my partner's, Alice's grandmother's face that we put on that old portrait.
Oh, no kidding.
It's a send up of those, of all the Gothic things set on the moors.
Yeah.
Funny. Multiple changes of costumes made so that you absolutely have to mess them up. That was a funny blooper. I came out to do a scene, and I had the same costume on from the same entrance, and I started doing the wrong scene, and Kelsey didn't try to cover for me at all. She just went, nope. So I went back in the door, and I came back out and did another one. She goes, still not right. That was fun. And I know we're running out of time. So let me see what else we have that you have pictures of. We have Oh, Yes, I Will. That was by Deborah Margolin, a one-woman show. Funny show about a woman who is based on her true story of going under, taking, truth serum taking sodium pentothal and knowing that she had spoken the whole time by the reaction of the doctor post-surgery. And so she tried to figure out what she possibly could have been talking about. They couldn't get her to shut up under anesthesia. So it's like 5 different versions of what she said. And then there's another picture of that where I'm dancing with my surgeon. And that was a very poignant scene. And finally, he gets me to shut up, and he lays me down on the table. And that's near the end. And then I have a monologue about death. But and then two more, and we got to stop. But an Iliad, and Parallel Lives. Parallel Lives we also brought to the Majestic. That was the one with Julie Wagoner and I playing all those roles.
Yeah.
We played men, women, all the scenes about there we are as the angels. They kind of bring you into the piece. And then there's Hank, who's a drunk, who's always like picking up the same woman. You look very, very pretty tonight, darling. And
Yeah, that was a funny play. I saw that up at the church in Goshen. I don't remember seeing it at the Majestic, so I was probably off on a fishing trip or something.
Yeah, you were fishing because we brought it.
Yeah,
and it was really fun. And then I think there's another Parallel Lives picture, and then there's an Iliad, which is a good one to end on. How much time I got?
oh, we can go as long as we want. Well,
Okay.
there's Scaramouche Jones.
Oh yes! Oh my God!
Yeah.
So yes, and Shiloh Rules. So we have a Scaramouche
Shiloh
Jones.
Rules. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that we brought. We did that at Three Sisters Sanctuary in Goshen, which is wonderful outdoor venue. They do mostly music, but they have a built-in amphitheater.
Yeah.
And it was magical with that particular show. The weather cooperated. Now that's another show that we did at Three Sisters. That's Shiloh Rules.
Mhm.
And you can, Jen is in it. Jen, what's Jen's last name?
Yeah, Jenny Wall.
Yes, Jenny Wall. There she is. And she's playing the role that I played when I did it at New Century. She's the sutler. She takes the, but this is, it was such a funny conceit because they're all female reenactors, Civil War reenactors, and, you know, they really exist. And, but sort of the meat of the play was that they were at the Shiloh war, the field, the memorial field where the Battle of Shiloh happened, and the park ranger is black, and she's like having to keep these fools in order, and it was pretty funny. And also, it has it's just a really good play. I love that play. That was really fun too.
Yeah, right.
And then the last one I'll talk about is an Iliad. We did many others, collected stories, 4,000 miles, but an Iliad was sort of like the equivalent of Wit for me. It was another one. I guess Wit was not a one-woman show, but it's like it was really focused on women. This was a one-woman show with John playing the music. He did an amazing soundscape for that. And I toured that to a number of places, took it up to Hubbard Hall. This is at APE Gallery where we opened it, and then we did it at the church. The place up in, which I think, well, I know you came on your motorcycle to see something at Hubbard Hall, but it's an old opera house in Cambridge, New York, and we draped it, and oh my God, that was, that's one of those, along with Wit, that I know I'm just going to remember on my deathbed. That was wonderful. 2 hours. 2 hours, Danny. We did it with and without an intermission, but it was without an intermission is 2 hours, with it's 2:15 of me talking. I don't know how I did it. Some of it was in Greek, ancient Greek, that I just memorized I made graphic novel kind of thing with the sounds and associations. And I did that for a long time. And I talked the producer up in Cambridge, it was a Pauline Productions, but the guy in Cambridge knew the playwright. It was a male playwright with a female. And he called her up and she said, yep, she's the first woman who's doing it. And to my knowledge, I'm the only one who's done it. And I'm very proud of it. I had a director who saw it, who said, to see a woman do that, wear that kind of rage, it was, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see it done by a man. It's all about war, and well, it's the Iliad. It's an adaptation of the
Iliad. Right. Huh.
I dream about doing that again. I'm just not sure I could do it. I don't know if I want to find out.
Yeah, right. So that's probably would you say the hardest show that you've done?
I think so. Yeah.
How about I ask everybody this. Do you have a pre-show routine that you go through? I mean, some actors have really interesting superstitions and so forth, but who was I talking to recently? Jack Neary. He said, he's had to sit in the exact same chair back whenever he was off stage, backstage. He had to be in that chair, and there couldn't be any other chairs beside him, and
oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I'll move his chair sometime when I see him. Well, I do a little bit. I like to get there and do my warm-ups kind of alone. And I do this thing that I learned from Meredith Monk, this toning thing. And it makes your head vibrate inside, and it kind of just clears you out and puts you in a zone, and it just calms me down. So I try to find some place where I can go, and it's like overtone singing.
Yeah.
So you make overtones, but it really kind of, so I do some physical warm-ups and breathing stuff and vocal stuff, and then I do that vocal thing, and then that really okay. And then I do a Qigong thing where I really imagine my energy. I do this backstage right before I come on, was just imagining the space and sending my chi all through it, and then with mentally inviting the audience to me. So to send the energy, to be open, and then to invite them in, to be open to them.
Yeah. So. Yeah, nice. Well, here's another question. Whenever we've done a talk back, somebody in the audience always asks this. So I've been asking all the people who've come on behind the curtain this question, and it's been interesting because I've got different kinds of answers. And the question is, how do you learn all those lines? Invariably, some audience member always asks that,
So I think it's a really good question because I ask myself that sometimes. How did I do that? Or how am I going to do that? Like with an Iliad, I knew I was going to do the show. I had said yes to the idea of doing it. And it was Sheila Siragusa who had directed it elsewhere with a man somewhere. And we were talking about what we could work on together. She suggested that. She said, I want another pop at it. And it turned out to be a very different production than the first one. But anyway, I was really a little frightened because I've done one-woman shows before, but this was long and dense. And like there's one section where I've just had it. And, the premise is that I am the poet and I have to keep telling the story until it stops. And so I arrive in this place. It's like I go through time and I like land, and I have to keep telling this story until people understand that they, war will continue forever until it changes. So it's a warning. It's a plea. So I was listening to NPR and I was like, boy, how am I going to do this? I'm worried about the lines. And I heard some memory expert say, okay, you make it visual. And so you come up with a picture that reminds you of that thing. And then you have to have the bridge to the next thing. And this was kind of a technique for learning a list. And there was a point in that show where the poet she has had it, and she's listing all the wars. And I think there are like 129 or 149 wars. And so what I did is I thought, okay, I'm going to try it. And if I can learn this list in 2 days, then I'm going to do this show. So I did that. And so I drew, like Peloponnesian. I draw two people like, I can't think of one, but I draw a picture that reminded just me, and I knew what it meant. It was like two people together being pals. So that gave me Peloponnesian. And then the one after the next war was, I don't know, the 3-day war. So I'd have the buddies holding up 3 fingers while they're being buddies. So that was Peloponnesia, 3-day war, so, and I got all 149 of them or whatever in 2 days. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. And so then I used that technique for the whole script, all of the Greek, and then actually the whole script. I have 5 books they're like graphic novels. And I learned those lines, and I had that to fall back on. I mean, once I'd done it a while, then I didn't really have to remember all of that in my head, but I had it to fall back on. So
yeah. Oh,
but it's not,
so
not easy.
Have you used that technique for other shows?
I have. It didn't work quite as well when you have a scene partner.
Yeah.
Because you're doing so much other stuff as well. But I do all of this stuff that you've probably heard, like with the tape recorder and what your intention and all of that is. But it takes me a while to learn lines because I don't learn them. Some people can't have a real visual memory and they really see the words on the page. Because I ask people how they do it. I can't do that. And I can't, I'm really oral and visual and kinesthetic. So I also have to be moving and doing my blocking at the same time. Otherwise, it's not integrated. And I do a lot of associations with each word. So, yeah, it's hard for me.
All right, last question. What advice would you give to, those young folks who aspire to be a part of this life that we live when we're not going through COVID?
Yes.
Because it seems like you've had a pretty wide range of experiences in the world of theater.
Yeah. Yeah, because I direct and I act and I produce. I think it's good to get as many of those going as you can. But I would say, you have to let go of a lot of the societal measures of success, because unless you're one of the 5, the little handful of people who actually make a lot of money at this,
Yeah.
you are not going to be a wealthy person. But it really has to feed you. It's like a calling. I mean, one of the reasons I went back to graduate school to do the movement therapy thing was I was like, this making a living at this just, it's not a great idea. But if you have the calling, you got to do it. That's been my experience.
Yeah,
and
you have no choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you have the skill, the business skill, like I really, starting a theater was my way of not waiting to get cast, because that really drove me mad, because it's like auditioning is not the same as acting, and I've not been a great auditioner. I just don't, so you got to believe in yourself. You've got to honor the work that you do. Surround yourself, find the joy in it. And like, I've been lucky to have a partner who really loves my work and encourages me and believes in me. And that's really helpful when you struggle. And I'm sure, Danny, you've gone through this with the producing stuff. So, have a life, keep your life going, keep learning constantly, find your spiritual connection, because you're going to need it, because it's a really tough business, and it's such a wonderful life. I think that I wouldn't have it any other way. And
yeah. And
So
that's so well put. I mean, it's, on the one hand, it's such a tough business. On the other hand, it's such a wonderful life.
Yeah.
That's kind of it in a nutshell, right?
Yeah. It's like Van said, oh my God, we're working actors. Like, enjoy it when you're doing it. And have faith in yourself, and do nice talk to yourself, because it's hard. But you're so lucky you got the calling.
Yep, that's great. Well, my friend Jeannine, thank you for spending time with us tonight. Really appreciate it. Kathy Ludi says hello. She's been watching. So
hi, Kathy.
And where's our friend Carly? Are you back there?
Yes, I'm here as always.
Here she is.
Jeannine, this has been awesome. I did not realize how many things you've had your hands in over the years. So we're glad to have you today.
Thank you. And it's so nice to meet you, Carly.
Well, hopefully I'll see you in person sooner rather than later.
Yes, I hope so. All
right. Well, until next time. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you.